Hello, my name is Andrew Brooks. This is another presentation of Non-Linear Existentialism. The title is Nietzsche, God, and Certitudism, with the subtitle being The Need for a Standard. With this one, I'm going to be posing a question that when I was doing separation and integration that I came upon, but I didn't think that I fully explained myself and gave a better understanding of what I was getting at. Of course, integration and separation and integration was the overlying arc, kind of giving the high points and how they interrelated with each other. And many times there was times I wanted to go deeper, but I thought that would distract from bringing everything together. So there's going to be a central question, and I'm going to link it with Nietzsche's work and also our understanding of the Catholic God, and some other things that we may or may not actually understand that are actually conceptual, artificial constructs. So I'm hoping this will be interesting. Thank you very much for So the question I have, and actually posed to me as I was writing or composing the other theories for separation integration, is if the Christian God as a physical entity is proven to be false through fact-based objective means as a result of defined inherent contradictions produced if such a physical presence existed, does it necessarily nullify the importance or need for God as a concept? And again, this is nothing to do with faith. It's just more of a logical consideration, and also for myself. I'm more of a Buddhist. I'm not a Christian. And the thing is that through work on this theory, I did come to a point that I believe through hard science, I was able to disprove the idea of the Christian God being all-powerful, all-seeing, omnipotent, and omniscient. And I did that through, again, with separation and integration, with the idea of thermodynamics and entropy. The idea being that if you've got a all-powerful, infinite power surrounding everything, that reason would tell you, and physics would tell you, that those particles, if the physical particles did maintain themselves in such a tremendous field of power, that entropy, as we know, would not exist. So at least for myself, it doesn't mean that I am correct, but at least for myself, that I could logically dismiss the Christian God. However, in some ways, I still believe in it, and I wanted to explore that. So, overview of non-linear existentialism. Gone through this a number of times, point 1, point 2, point 3, and I've just mentioned the proposition R14 in the bottom there to give a little bit of background with residual and instantaneous incongruency. So the idea being that through input via external and internal neuronal pathways, neuronal patterns are formed in specific areas of the cerebral cortex. And through that, we have incongruency, interference, and instability. Another way of looking at it is that it produces anxiety. Again, I believe that existence is based upon the instability of which we experience as anxiety. And as the positive point of it is that that instability may be cured because of the system is actually able to use the instability to produce new patterns that would hopefully increase neuronal energy and decrease the anxiety. Again, I just at the very bottom there have a direct copy and paste from separation and integration. So overview of non-linear existentialism, just going a little step further. As a byproduct of the continual production of internal incongruencies between and within neuronal patterns through either frequency or amplitude modulation or both, the system manages such incongruencies by attempting to produce stable congruent patterns, and I've referred to as quantitative and qualitative referential knowledge. This occurs via the optimization of energy levels through a positive-negative feedback loop between the cerebral cortex, limbic system, and midbrain. This process can sometimes, in the effort to increase predictability, enhance certainty, and a subsequent reduction in anxiety, create neuronal pattern standards that may not or cannot exist in nature. That's a very, very important idea that I thought I should be emphasizing, thereby becoming essentially a conceptual construct, something that we create, even though there's no reason to believe that it should exist. Nevertheless, such patterns, if tempered, and that's very important, are necessary for the stability of the system. If they are not tempered, these standards can result in the person developing dysfunctional standards. What are the dysfunctional standards? Well, narcissism, when the standard is internalized and shielded, as it were, from reality in some ways. Basically, I know what I should do. I'm basically self-regulating, which is very dangerous. Then we have fanaticism and hero worshipping, over reliance on external standard, and a nihilism where we basically have no standard whatsoever. Again, these are quite dangerous. It doesn't take much thought to see where and why they would be dangerous. So, of course, we have to talk about Nietzsche and his two works that I believe that are very related to this is Will to Power and The Gay Science. Through reading these and trying to stay to the excerpts and such that directly relate to our topic, I believe it was saying it's due to a rise in science and objectivity in the 19th century Europe. In Europe, we got to remember it's Europe, the questionable practice of Christianity, including the holy lie, that undermine the importance of physical life, where we're beginning to diminish in importance. Basically, the idea is that because the Christianity at that time did very much undermine what it was to be a person. It's saying that we have to suffer this existence, and if we're good, we get a better existence. So it really undermined the physical life, and it kind of like took away, why should I almost bother? Why would we get redemption if in God's eyes I did good? If I accepted his gift of redemption, then I could live a better existence somewhere else, and I would just have to put up with what I have right now. Nietzsche believed the concept of a Christian God, again, Christian God, had inherent power over the lower social economic classes due to their vulnerability to such concepts. That's going to be from the Will to Power, TWTP. 172 and 213, I think, did a good job of surmising that, of concluding that. And the weak and sullen in this life could become powerful and happy in the next. Awards. This is an important one to this, continuing with the ideas. To this point, Nietzsche believed the root cause of religion and metaphysics was personal weakness, which was quelled by the introduction of another world, heaven, a better place. And that's going to be Gay Science 151. An extension of this argument is given below in Gay Science 347. And I didn't paraphrase these ones because I thought he did a much better job of me showing his work, and then I'm attempting to paraphrase it. Some individuals still have the need of metaphysics, but also that vehement longing for certainty, which nowadays discharges itself in the general populace in a scientific and positivistic manner. The longing to possess something absolutely firm. A longing which, because of its fervor, leads to casual and negligent attempts of substantiating the certainty. This too is nothing but the longing for some kind of foothold or support. In short, it is the instinct of weakness which does not actually create religious beliefs, metaphysics, ideas, and fictions of all kinds, but rather conserves it. So there's a linkage between the desire for another world, because the Christian faith at that time undermined and kind of emphasized what it was like to be in that lower social economic class, and through these other means substantiated it. Continue. We could imagine a delight in the capacity for self-determination, a freedom of will by which a spirit bids farewell to every belief, to every wish for certainty, being proficient in hanging on to a thin ropes and possibilities, and even dancing on the brink of the abyss. Such a spirit would be the free spirit par excellence. The idea, I think, is that if we're able to free ourselves from worries, free ourselves from the idea that we need to have this standard, and I'm going to go with this standard, this perfect standard, then we can be free from concern. And that's an interesting idea we'll explore. When he says absolutely firm, I think there's more than one. And this is very important to, when I talk about perfect standards or conceptual constructs, yes, there is a Christian God. And when I say it's perfect, meaning that it's absolute. When we talk about God, there's absolute Christian God, absolute power, absolute everything, perfection. But also we have other things. And geometric shapes is another one. And I think we're somewhat confused that there are perfect circles or perfect shapes and such that do exist in nature, and that is absolutely not the case. We have constructed that, and that is a mathematical truism that we go to the center of an area and we have the same radius that goes all the way around, but that does not exist in reality. That is basically a theoretical conceptual construct, and also math. And I would greatly argue that math is a construct that we have made. Some of us have made, engineers, mathematicians, and such, that are very, very linear, that try to remove any uncertainty for themselves. And they create this through the idea that, let's say, go simply, one what? Well, we have to have something to attach it to in the natural world. We can say one atom. Okay, that should be as finite as possible, but are you really atom of what? We have to look at its shape, we have to look at its speed, we have to look at its velocity, we have to look where it is. There is actually no, I believe, anything you can say is one is equal to something that is unique or can be repeated again. So is it one person? No. You can't even find identical twins that are side by side that are the exact same person. So I think, again, emphasize that it isn't just a Christian or Christian faith or the idea of God. We have to think about that. The desire to go towards perfection or an ideal state is not just unique to what we genuinely believe as people that are of that thought. I mean, I think it runs through a lot of other demographics, type of individuals, backgrounds, and such. So I think that's extremely important to mention. And that's why I bring up the idea of certitudism. First, we'll go with the idea of certitude. It's a noun, a feeling of being certain, a thing about which you are certain. When you go with certain, certain is a standard. I'm certain of this because it is exactly in this state. And then you go with how does a noun certitude differ from other similar words. I brought this because I think it's important to just show this. The words certainty and conviction are common synonyms of certitude. While all three words mean a state of being free from doubt, certitude may emphasize a faith in something not needing or not capable of proof. Believes with certitude in an afterlife. Again, this is why I did the idea of certitudism. And again, even though we're bringing up the idea of religion, that when you believe in an absolute state of something, which does not happen in nature, be whatever type of science that you're from, that you're going towards the idea or the concept of certitudism. And I'll define it here very simply, but I think it gets to the point. The inherent process in non-linear systems of developing standards that can become more and more unnatural. This may lead to the production of non-physically possible concepts. Again, I conceptualize something that is perfect, but can I find something that's perfect or is perfect that cannot be dismissed or diminished in any way, because that's what perfection is. So even if someone come up with a perfect idea or perfect thing, it will be diminished over time. So it's no longer a functional or real absolute case of that thing. It's only when it's, I guess, removed from reality. And that's the problem, is that sometimes people come up with these conceptual constructs and then believe somehow that they are real, and they cannot be real. However, so given that, due to the inherent production of instability in the system, there is an inherent need requirement for the same system to produce certainty, which can come in many forms. The difficulty then is for the sentient being that is imbued with such certainty to recognize this process and be careful not to put too much emphasis on the standards that may be non-physical concepts. Is that agreement with Nietzsche? Well, let's think about it. In the cited excerpts, Nietzsche appears to conclude that excessive certainty, something absolutely firm, his words, is dangerous. It is a sign of weakness and needs to be overcome. Those that are poor or afflicted in some manner are especially prone to this. In comparison, I believe that the requirement for certainty is somewhat too absolute. It's fundamental need of a non-linear being such as a person. So he sees it as something that we shouldn't have, and I see it as something as that we should. His is a logical argument. Mine is more of a, well, it's a logical argument as well, but biologically based. I don't believe his is biologically based, even though we're both existentialists and we both hopefully base our arguments on observable things. So, nevertheless, if the standard which creates certainty within the person becomes an abstract, conceptual, absolute, or natural, the person has to be aware of this and caution himself from making choices based on these conceptual constructs. As such, although I agree with Nietzsche's analysis, I do so with the understanding that such standards are not to be thoughtlessly removed from a person without trying to understand why they are there and if they are causing a person harm. Remember, standards cannot only include the Christian God, but math and geometry and other things. So if someone comes along and goes, well, this person believes in God, and they believe God is real, that the Christian God is real, and they're doing everything in this world to prepare themselves for the next, and you come along and you show them categorically that they are incorrect, they might say, well, I have faith, I don't really care what you say. However, let me say I have someone that's more inclined to have those opinions overturned, their faith isn't as strong, and that might be devastating for them that you've removed that standard. If they have no standard, what are they going to do? And they will be getting to that very soon. Existing and fluctuating electro-neural physiological condition is an inherent natural state for a nonlinear being, such as ourselves. It is not a byproduct of the environment, but it is enhanced or reduced by it. It is also enhanced or reduced by the amount of anxiety the person carries, either by way of natural instability of their system or by way of the patterns that they store. The anxiety created by it can cause a person to choose a set of belief standards that are functional or dysfunctional. Again, back to the idea that, let's go back to that religious person that actually can be coerced through strong logical statements. Let's say you remove that, the idea of that there being a God, a Christian God, or whatever God they believe in. You've removed this, and then you're going into the idea of that they might succumbing to nihilism. They have no standard. They have no belief system. And we have many a philosopher, Sartre is certainly one of them, that once that's removed, what does one do? If it's functional, we can have what Nietzsche referred to as self-determinism, and also I, as a Buddhist, that is there. That remember, the entire idea here is not per se to go to this better place or such and forth. It is to find a standard that reduces the anxiety of the individual, so hopefully to increase the sustainable neurological state of that individual. So it isn't per se to go to heaven or blah, 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 and all these other things. It is to reduce their anxiety. So for myself, Buddhism works for that. Other people would be self-determinism, and of course they become quite dysfunctional. We have, of course, many anarchists that it goes without saying that narcissism is very, very dangerous because it circumvents any idea of responsibility or social integration. You've got a very strong narcissistic personality that can say, it's me, I'm right, I have the right because it's me. They have a circular argument and they divorce themselves from anyone around them. Yeah, that can be very appealing to others, but again, we have that the God thing going on again, that we created perfect standard for that individual, even though the person's not perfect, even though that person who's a narcissist isn't perfect. They become a dictator and people fall towards it because that person is providing them certainty. So again, the certainty is very important, even though the standard might not be perfect. They see this individual and the person who's seeing them and that needs them to be there for them might in their own mind make that person perfect, even though they aren't perfect. It's amazing what a person can do to them. So there's a lot of information here, but I thought it was pretty important to go over it. that this is another offshoot, because when I was writing, again, separation and integration, and I came across the idea of proving to myself, the arguments I made with myself, that the Christian God does not exist, but I still can see it and I can't completely remove it from my thoughts. Even though I do have Buddhism, but there's a lot of overlap, put it that way. And I was thinking, well, how is that possible? And that comes in the idea of standards and the idea of the need to reduce certainty within myself. So that's why I came up with the idea of Certitudism. I thank you very much for your time. I thought this was really relevant, and it's just a continuation of explaining non-linear existentialism in reference to lived experiences and also to famous philosophers, and see if my theories are in agreement or not, and if not, why. Thank you very much.